Welcome to the Psych Gym. I'm your trainer, Vanessa Perry, a former mental health therapist turned intuitive counselor. Much like a physical gym, in this space we'll aim to target specific psychological muscles and train them to be stronger. I'm so glad you are joining this gym. Let's hit the weights. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Psych Gym. Today we're going to explore a topic I love so much, and it comes up a lot in the conversations in my sessions, of course. I actually truly believe that I always attract clients who eventually we're going to have this conversation. And I like it that way. I feel that when I started this practice, that was my intention, is that we all know the clinical world, not for me, definitely not for me. And so when I started my business, I made sure, truly, energetically, that I was like, that is not what I want. Like, don't bring me people who are looking for that clinical worksheet type of person, because I'm never going to be that person. I struggled with that, of course. Like validation and inexperience made me waver back and forth between whether or not that was a good thing or that being rogue was a good thing, just trying to figure out which of the two. But it has landed in this space, and it has been beautiful since I landed in this space. So I love very much this topic, and I love that every single day I get to practice it with people, and I get to introduce it sometimes to people who it's a blind side, and then sometimes to people who were just afraid to bring it up. And then they finally felt safe enough to bring it up with me, and off to the races, man. Whenever somebody says to me, this is going to sound a little bit crazy, a little bit too woo-woo, I'm like, give it right now. Don't make me wait. Because I love it. And doing what I do, I see how these two things mix together and how knowing that can really elevate people's healing. So now that I've talked around it, what are we talking about? The connection between spirituality and mental health. Now, first off, when I say spirituality, I do not necessarily mean religion. I remember when I was working in one of the rehabs, and at least once at the beginning of every single spirituality group I led, the new guy, it was always the new guy, would say, I don't know why we have to do this group. I'm not religious. I don't believe in God. Every time. Only if it was a new guy, because the rest of the guys on the floor knew what it was about and could participate. But the new guy, always, because you're especially when you're in a rehab space, it is very difficult to believe in anything because your life has become something awful. And when you think that something awful could be connected to something bigger, that feels even worse. So there's an extreme cutoff. Anyway, I digress. That is not on my script. And I write the script to try to stay on it. So let's just get back on it. Maybe our society has also used these terms interchangeably too much. And now that's why the synonymous feeling exists, right? Like words are a thing. And sometimes when we hear two words that are said often together to mean the same thing, it's just kind of programmed within us, and we just have to unlearn and relearn. So what I'm talking about, though, when I talk about spirituality, is a deeper sense of connectivity to something that's bigger than ourselves, whatever that means. It could be to like meanings, it could be to purpose, it could be the expansiveness of the universe or God or creator, even the earth, right? Something that's bigger than ourselves. It's in that we feel connected to. And I know that feels a little bit broad, but it's meant to be. It's meant to be expansive. So for many people, spirituality becomes what we turn to during times of struggle. And we don't even really need to have the conversation about how that fits into mental health, right? Because those people who have done it, no, they're like, we hear it all the time, right? I found God, I found religion, I found spirituality, and gosh, I just feel so much better about everything. But for others that are still maybe curious about it and not sure how it fits into mental health, they're not really sold on it. Let's go ahead and unpack this. So hopefully I can sell you on it. what this can mean for our well-being, how it supports healing, and also, a little bit of what to be careful of along the way, because like anything, when we're using things to help us heal, we want to make sure that we're in a linear path with that as much as we can, so that we're not hurting ourselves instead of helping ourselves. So let's talk about why spirituality even matters. Why is this a conversation? Humans are wired for meaning and connection, right? When life gets hard, when trauma is happening, or when depression or anxiety is pulling at us, it's really easy to feel like the rug is being pulled out from under us, right? Like there's no ground beneath us. And that sense of meaning and connection and belief system can be really hard to find when we're in the trenches, especially when it's circumstances that feel unfair. We haven't looked at it yet to see how the circumstances happen. They just feel very unfair. So it's a thing that we do automatically. That's our spirit. So it's not like I'm introducing something outside of what normally happens with us. It's actually recognizing it and working with it. We are spiritual beings because we all have a spirit within us, right? Sorry if you didn't like that, but it's true. I'm not suggesting right now, I just want to get this out of the way, that we're doing everything happens for a reason, because I know that that's triggering as fuck. I don't say it like that, but I do believe that, we really just don't want to let the one thing in front of us create a false idea of the totality of everything that's happening. So, yeah, we'll talk about everything happens for a reason later. So spirituality oftentimes creates like a kind of like anchor in people's life, like a grounding point. It can help us with a sense of purpose, reminding us that we matter and that we have a reason for being here. Not necessarily that the things that are happening have a reason, but like I have one. I have a purpose. I am here to do something or affect something or create something or love people. I mean, there's lots of ways that we have purpose here. It's not just the stuff we talk about with purpose, like our jobs and things like that. There are things that we provide into this world for people that are purposeful. It can also help us with hope, right? Like spirituality can be like, whew, this is not forever. Or, something bigger is coming for me, holding me, walking with me, guiding me, helping me through this. It can really bring us to a place of hope when we've been in what feels like a hopeless place. It also brings us connection. Again, we're humans. We're wired for connection in some ways. And when I say that, a lot of people think human to human connection, which yes, true, right? Like we need some of that, but we need connectivity to energy. We need connectivity to the things that are bigger than us, to our communities, to nature, to, if God, source, whatever you want to call something that feels like a creative energy, creator energy, the universe itself, which is expansive and crazy and amazing, and we don't understand it, so it's bigger than us, right? Just anything. But being connected to that idea of like, man, this me right here is just tiny in the expansiveness of everything. So there's got to be more than what's just right in front of me. And that's usually where we start, right? With spirituality. We're just looking for something bigger than you. And we'll move through that into what the next bigger thing is. So you all know I'm not the biggest research person on earth, because I just don't believe that we should pigeonhole anyone or anything based on what's been found in a tiny population of people. But there is research in psychology that backs up this idea that I'm talking about. And I do celebrate how research can often highlight how things don't fit into neat little piles. Like, that's my favorite thing. I love when research proves prior research wrong. It makes me so happy, because it's like, y'all, like, information is good, but to decide that information is the be all end all, it's awful. Just keep looking, right? Because nothing is standard across the board. So I do love that. And so I love that people who engage in some form of spiritual practice, whether it's prayer, meditation, mindfulness, going to a service of some sort, or even just spending time in nature, a lot of them report, right, that they have lower levels of stress, that they feel more resilient, they feel like they can cope with more. And again, this is not across the board, but there's enough for us to pay attention to the reality that exists as a phenomenon. And these are just spiritual practices, right? So people who are doing that and feeling like it's improving their mental health, right? Like it kind of takes the clinical spin and is like, well, right? Because depression and anxiety in particular are often seen as purely clinical, right? We're always like, oh, I mean, earlier on, it was a natural chemical imbalance. And it was like, now we know better. Now we know that it like doesn't just happen, that our feelings can change our chemistry, that our food that we put in our gut changes our chemistry 100% because serotonin and things like that are also made in the gut. Things we didn't know before. Again, this is what I love about research is as long as we keep doing it, we will keep learning and we will keep changing these practices so that they support us better as humans. We have to do that, I think. I think that's part of the evolution of humans. I mean, they absolutely do have biological and physiological or psychological parts of it, right? Like all of mental health have those things. Those chemicals are changed, right? That is not what I'm questioning. Sometimes I question how and how to change them back, right? And that's where this conversation is going. From a spiritual perspective, though, these things like depression and anxiety, they carry messages about what we're doing that doesn't line up with what our inner self wants or needs. Happens all the time, right? Like I sit down with people and these are things that we talk about. It's not about punishment or evidence that you're off your path or not doing things right. They're just indicators that your soul is calling for something different, whatever that's going to mean. So sometimes it's subtle and sometimes it's extremely loud and we're doing big changes. So like depression will often say you've been carrying this pain and it's consuming you, right? You're getting lost in whatever this pain is. Anxiety is telling you you're living in fear and not in trust. And that's obviously beyond the biological, right? These are messengers. They are not our enemies. But when we try to silence them or shame ourselves for feeling them, we really do miss that sacred information that they're trying to bring to us. They are messengers. They are not trying to hurt us. They're trying to tell us stuff. And if we only address the biological, y'all, I always say this and I do believe it, that the broken spirit is always going to become louder in the end. It will be a temporary fix. But if you don't touch anything else, it's going to come back in one way or another. We cannot medicate everything away forever. It's really important to heal our souls and our traumas too. Trauma is psychological, physical, and energetic. Addressing all of them, in my opinion, is how people become the most successful at shifting into lives that feel good and feel better and feel lovely. And that's what we're looking for, right? Like we want to feel good. We want to be happy. We want to have joy. Spirituality also, I mean, it doesn't mean that you escape your mental health struggles. I think that that's something that people need to know is that it's not like, oh, I'm spiritual and now I don't have mental health struggles. Like this girl right here, anxiety. She loves me. Anxiety continues to love me. Even though I do deeply spiritual things on a regular basis to try to keep myself in a good space with me and my soul, I'm still a 3D person living out in this world. I'm still having things come at me that affect my brain because I have one and my heart and my soul because I have one. So what we're doing though is bringing light and gentleness to them. It's like sitting with your sadness instead of trying to outrun it or beat it down. You're hanging with your anxiety the same and giving it love like you would a scared child instead of, again, kind of beating yourself up about it. It's shadow work, right? It's not about fixing yourself, but it's just remembering yourself, taking parts of you that feel like they may be quote unquote dark, but just understanding them because they're there for a reason and they got there somehow. And we don't want to allow them to consume us without even understanding what they are, right? Because that's how it happens. If we don't understand it, it can consume us. If we do understand it, we can have the conversations, just like everything else. So this brings yourself back to the purest parts of you, the parts that were covered up by trauma and all this real world bullshit, right? We came into this world pure and then the world happened to us. And when we're not intentional about knowing what that means, this is usually how our mental health struggles begin to happen. And then we get lost in them. And then the matrix adds, and here we go. And then people like me exist to try to unravel all of those things, which I'm glad to do. I love it. I would really love it if I had to go find something else to do, because everybody could be mentally healthy without it. But for now, this is what I do. Spirituality does not erase pain. I want to be very clear on that, but it can reframe it just enough for us to move through it differently, moving through it without like that deep, horrible feeling that sometimes happens. Instead of, why is this happening to me, and lamenting and feeling very lost and out of control, well, we can start asking, what can I learn? How can I grow? How can I use something that's bigger than this, me, to remind myself that this is temporary and that I can move through it and that I can learn and I can change. It's about recentering on the fact that we can change things if we are lit up enough. Like, I want to make that super clear. The most intense fire is always going to come from your inner being, your heart and soul. And that can be angry fire, right? Because that inner being is not getting what it wants. And it can be beautiful creative fire when we're feeding our inner being what it does want, right? Yeah, here, of course, bringing up fire again. That's what this girl does. She loves it. So let's see how, like, practical ways. I'm going to bring it down to, down to like kind of earth. We're ethereal a little bit, but let's bring it into our real life. How does spirituality support our mental health? So practices like mindfulness and meditation, they are literally just spiritual in nature, because they are shifting into something outside of ourselves for a moment, right? Connecting to something else, connecting to breath, connecting to music, connecting to, I love a timeline jump, right? Like just kind of connecting to what feels like another timeline for me, and how I can create the inner being of me that lives in that timeline, right? Being present. It helps quiet the nervous system, and the nervous system, as we know, is very tied to our mental health. So these kinds of things affecting our body, if we can slow down, if we can shift the energy just enough, it can help us start that healing part. I love a good guided meditation, because left to my own devices, even if it's just music, my ADHD brain goes into Roomba mode. And it's like, I just need somebody to lead me. And that's how it's always been. I don't know if it's how it will always be, but that's just how it's always been. And I feel no guilt or shame about it. It is what it is. Even in my tiny moments, though, in my days, I do deep breaths, and I feel those throughout my system as bringing in new energy and dispelling stale energy. I do this multiple times a day, and I feel it. It's like I feel it from my gut, because I feel everything in my gut. My poor gut. Right. So if I start to get nervous, it's my stomach. If I start to worry about, anything really, it's in my gut. If I feel sad, it's in my gut. Like my gut just, she takes the brunt of everything. So when I take my deep breaths, I have to do my belly breaths, and I have to feel that energy movement, because air is energy, right? I feel it coming in, and then it's like I feel it taking whatever's in there and pushing it back out so that it can be purified by the air. And yes, that is exactly what my brain does. It's how I have to do it. So just a little inner look at what those deep breaths do for me. Those little mindful seconds sometimes are the pillar of my rough days behind the screen as a counselor, especially. Like I get off of a deep session where empathy being my superpower, I don't usually hold it back too much in session so that I can be present. But then when I'm out of session, I'm like, whew, you gotta cleanse that, girl, because if you hold on to that, we're going to have a rough one. So I do these mindful things quite often. Another way that spirituality can help us is prayer or intention setting, talking to God, source, whatever you want to call it, the universe, your ancestors even, or even just your higher self, right? Like sometimes we're just like, hey, higher self, person who isn't here in the matrix, can you give me something? Right? It's the act of reaching outward, and it can bring relief and take away that isolation feeling that it's just you against the world. It's not really an act of desperation per se. I know that sometimes that's what we do, is that we'll pray when we're desperate. But it can be gratitude, a prayer of gratitude or an intention of gratitude. Help me be thankful for my life today. Help me see the parts of my life that are beautiful today, right? Because I might get lost in the things that I don't see as beautiful. It can be an ask for a sign or guidance. I love asking for a sign and then getting it and then asking for a signier sign, which usually does make me laugh because I'm just like, girl, you got it. Just chill, right? But a lot of times when I'm asking for a sign, what I'm actually asking for is the thing to happen. So I'll say, give me a sign that this thing is happening. Right. And then I'll get the sign and I'll be like, okay, so then if it's happening, why isn't it happening right? Like, how come I don't see it? Like, I want the concrete. I just want it to happen. Right. Like, that's what I get down to, of being like, you're not letting the process happen. The sign is telling you that it's in process, and you're over here thinking if it's not right here, it could not be in process. Weirdo. So these are just, again, like some of the things that I feel like are helpful for me. And so I'm always trying to put that into words and into transparency so that you can feel like these are just not words that I'm talking at you as concepts. They're things that are really, I've seen happen for myself or for other people. It can also just be centering yourself on what you're working toward, feeling the energy of it, and or asking for added energy from a higher being, right? So you could be in a pretty decent place, or you could feel a little bit anxious and ungrounded and be like, okay, I know that this is the right thing. I know that this is the right thing because my inner self is trying to run toward this 150 miles an hour, but I don't have a lot of energy. So help me connect to more energy, whatever that energy means, whether it's more fire, whether it's more people to collaborate with, just asking for additional so that we can move forward. That can happen too. You don't have to be in turmoil to do prayers and things like that. Another way that spirituality can help us in our lives is through rituals. You guys know what I'm going to talk about in a minute. Lighting a candle. Sometimes people journal before bed or when they wake up. Taking a mindful walk, really just taking a walk. Like, this is my mental health walk. I have some clients who do that. Rituals remind us that our actions can have rooted meanings, that they're not just actions we go through mindlessly. Sometimes we do go through things mindlessly, but we can turn our intention into things that are meaningful. Like even things that seem mundane, we can change the energy of that and make them a little bit more magical. Y'all know, I love a burn ritual. It's a whole ass feeling for me. Right now, I'm thinking about it and I'm like, I can't wait to do another one. It's like an exorcism every time. I feel like, for me. And again, I mean, sometimes when people watch my life and they're like, man, you like move through stuff. I'm like, yeah, because I exercise my demons, whatever my demons feel like. Sometimes my demons are just thoughts I don't want, and they're not really demons. They're just, ooh, that's not working for me. Get it out. Not in a negative, horrible way, but just, woo, you got to go. You cannot be here. You're not helping. I don't want people or things that are not helpful. I know that sounds really dramatic, but I'm just being honest with you. I have no reason not to be honest with you. I often light candles with intention too. I stir my coffee with intention sometimes, right? I love my coffee, right? Like, ooh, you and I, we're going to wake up and get some shit done today. And that's just as simple as it is. But it changes my mundane coffee ritual into something that feels a little bit more intention and has some meaning. I blow cinnamon through my door for abundance at least once a month. I hang out with my vision board for a few minutes and I look at the words and I look at the pictures and I feel the energy of all those words and pictures, right? Just allow that to be a thing that I do often. So ritual doesn't, I want to remind you that ritual doesn't have to mean consistency on a schedule. Y'all with ADHD, I know when somebody asks me, when's the last time you did A, B, or C, unless I'm doing it every day, I don't fucking know. Right? And sometimes I will say like, oh, I'm meditating every day. And I'm like, oh, there's a couple days in there probably that I didn't, but it's okay because my energy is good. Right? So I don't want you to feel like you have to do everything on a schedule. It's just about the things that we do to get into meaning, things that are repeatable are great. And they give us that special feeling. If you've done any of these things, you know what that special feeling is. And we're just looking for that as many times as we can get it. And then also, one thing that I think is a thing that people don't think about as spiritual is community, right? Spirituality can often come with community because it's connection to our soul and our desires and our wants. Sometimes it is supportive groups, whether it's, in a faith setting or, we're doing things like yoga or meditation circles or sister circles like in Myrtle Beach that I miss so much, sitting on the beach with my girls. They really can elevate our soul feelings, right? Don't you just love it when you're in a community element that feels like your vibe? You're at a concert and you're just like, oh my God, yes, we're all here to fucking love on this. Feels good. Feels soul level good. And I have a lot of vibrations that I get into. So it's like I have a lot of communities that feed my soul. My hockey team, my goddess circles, my music friends, my girls, like just my girls that we have just a special connection, a special way that we talk to each other. They all touch my soul and that all feels spiritual because I let it. I don't just have it be a collective of people around me for whatever reason. I feel it. Like right now, I just dipped into all of those people and felt that just, oh God, I'm so fucking blessed that I have these communities. And that's why I have those communities. That's why I build more on those communities because I feel them on a soul level. I feel the safety. I feel the growth that they bring. And that makes me feel good. And it's good for my mental health. So here's something though that I want you to remember above all else. This is deeply personal. Spirituality is deeply personal. For some people, it does look like a Sunday service. For other people, it is, a coffee ritual, sitting on a porch or sitting at your table, feeling the sunrise. It all counts. It matters how you feel. So that's my problem with some facets of organized religion. I am all for whatever brings people to a good place. But don't go telling everybody it's the only way. Offer it up as an option and sell it because you love it. Absolutely. But once it goes into that taking away of spiritual freedom, that's when I lose interest and get, honestly pretty annoyed, which sucks, right? Because I'm trying not to be that way, but it does. It does get at my 3D self when I see that happen because it feels very limiting. And self-freedom or self-themed freedom person, not really into being limited or letting other people be limited. So I want to talk a little bit about just a tiny bit about the rough side of spirituality, about how spirituality is not always helpful. It's helpful if it's being accessed with divine purpose attached to it, but sometimes it's not helpful. Sometimes it's harmful. And this is kind of like what I was talking about a minute ago. For some people, religion has been a source of trauma. Maybe it increased shame, guilt, we know that, exclusion, making people feel like they are never enough, making them feel like they have to hide their true selves because it doesn't fit in that setting. So in those cases, absolutely, reconnecting with spirituality can feel like kind of confusing and triggering. And I know a lot of people with religious trauma. I mean, I had some too. Before I made the jump out of Catholicism into my spiritual journey, I wrestled with guilt. I wrestled with the guilt of not truly believing in my religion even, right? Like not fully wanting to own it, but being like, that's fucked up. You shouldn't be there if you're not going to fully own it. cycles, man. There were a lot of mental cycles that I went through during that time. So yeah, I get it, right? Sometimes when we're dipping back into spirituality, we're touching that religious trauma. But we don't have to live in it, and we can move through it, and we can change that so that you can be attached to something that feels more loving and supportive than maybe that environment that felt traumatizing. Another mess we get into, though, is what we call spiritual bypassing. What is that? That is when we use our spiritual beliefs to avoid reality. Like that saying, it's a perfect time to talk about it. Everything happens for a reason. I mean, you can find purpose in everything that happens. You can use something. I believe that from anything that can evolve you. Even the worst things ever, you can change the energy of it and have something come out of it that feels evolution like. But using this to bypass grieving or even getting angry, right? Like, oh, I'm not going to get angry because whatever, but you are frustrated inside and you're allowed to be frustrated. And those are not negative emotions. Those are truth tellers. And we have to be able to listen to our truth tellers. So true spirituality does not erase pain whatsoever. It sits with it. It transforms it, but it definitely doesn't try to wash it away without having felt its depth and learning from it. So those feelings, again, they come and they tell us about our hearts and souls and beliefs. Often we get caught in the physical nervous system part of it, though, and that's what we seek to ease ASAP, right? We're not comfortable in pain, which is a good thing. I mean, we're not supposed to be comfortable in pain, but it doesn't mean it's a good thing if we try to shift out of it super fast before we have taken from it what elevates our souls. So if you've had a rough relationship with spirituality, it's totally fine to take your time with this. It's totally fine to be tentative. It's okay to do this however it feels good to do it. You can blend it however you want. You can go to church and not believe in all the things that are said there. Honestly, like I said, I think for the last 2 years that I attended Catholic church, I went because I love the buildings, first of all. I mean, I love a church building, like a Catholic church building. And I don't really know if that's just because of the Catholic thing or if they are that ornate and beautiful. I don't know. It's just a feeling I get. And I loved the ritual of Mass. I loved moving through each intentional practice. And I think because I was so ungrounded in my personal life for most of that time, it provided me with a structure to do something, anything that would bring me out of myself and into any kind of higher power moment, right? So it served its purpose in my life at that time because it was the only way that I could feel connected to something bigger than me. Other than that, I was out in the world just anxious and feeling like I was a victim of the world no matter what I was doing, right? Like things were just, and I'll leave it at that. So let's bring this together. How do we integrate this stuff? And where did the mental health stuff go, Vanessa? So when we are thinking about spirituality, I want you to think of baby steps. If you're not a person who's been super spiritual, I just want you to think about what you're drawn to. Do you thrive in quiet? Does quiet just really make you feel it feels like it should be disconnected, but you're actually connected to the silence? Is that a thing for you? Is it music? Is it that prayer or ritual? Is it nature? Feel like whatever feels nourishing, I want you to touch that first. Anything that feels like, whatever that is. That's the easiest way to start, in my opinion. Music is major for a lot of people, but even that, I want to make sure that you're hearing the word nourishing and not just listening to music that triggers you or keeps you in the vibration that you're trying to move from, which looks like always listening to music that may validate your pain, but never introducing anything that validates joy. Right? And that's not about music tastes, because I get that. But again, if you trust me and you trust the work that I've done in my career, you will know that this is a real thing, that we're not shifting out of vibrations if we're staying in them, period. Right? So even if something makes us feel good, a lot of times what feels good is just because it's familiar. That doesn't make it a great thing for our changing our lives, right? I want you to remember to keep it simple. That this is not something you have to go crazy with. 1 minute, 30 seconds, 5 seconds of mindful breathing, one sentence of gratitude, one candle lit with intention, that can be enough sometimes. A lot of times people will try to add really big things in, things that are time consuming or confusing, or they feel very performative. That doesn't usually hit what we're looking for. So it will feel hollow and empty and even annoying when it doesn't feel like it's worth working. That will take people out of spiritual practice because they'll say, oh, it's not working. I did this thing. I lit my sage and I walked around my house and I fucking said the thing that was on the piece of paper and I don't feel anything different. Right? Like, well, yeah, first of all, like, what was your belief system about what you were doing and why you were doing it? Right? And maybe that is too big of a step for you. Maybe you just need to do some aromatherapy and sit there and smell that first and see how that shifts your energy and see how that can shift the energy of your home. And then you work up into saging energies outside of your house because maybe your belief system doesn't quite line up with that yet. So try to keep it simple. Remember that like anything in your life that you're starting from scratch with, you're building this. So you're building a spiritual connection. You're not just snapping it into your life. It's not going to really work that way. I want you to do, this is kind of like a mindful thing. Notice when shifts happen, any shifts. Pay attention to how your nervous system, your mood, or, your perspective changes when you engage in these practices. Y'all know I'm about the awareness, and awareness creates presence in the moment. Observation tells us things about what's working and what's not, but it can also be the grounding force we need to keep us in that moment to feel what we intend to feel, right? So things like this happens to me all the time. And I know that this is like basic manifestation 101. It's in The Secret. It's in all whatever. But man, whenever I get a parking space right up front, because I know there's a parking space right up front, I'm like, thank you, universe. Whenever I get an angel number, I just turn on my phone for no fucking reason. And I see 333. I'm like, thank you for that reminder, right? I'm just staying in those moments. And it touches my nervous system. And I notice that, right? Like, so when I notice the feeling when I see 333, right? Like, and I go, yeah, that feels really good. Right. And so I'm talking about, I'm noticing those shifts happen. I'm staying in that vibration. That's what we're trying to do here. And then lastly, I want you to give yourself grace always. Spirituality is not a perfect thing. There's no way to do it perfectly other than just showing up again and again. That's the only perfection you can do, is just show up and have a desire and knowledge that it's all movable as you try new things. It's okay to pick them up and put them right back down. It's okay to pick them up and hang out with them for a while after you hit them heavy and then put them down for a while. Again, you're going to follow your internal compass, not necessarily what anyone else is telling you is the way, right? I go hard sometimes on my Shakti mat because I'm like super ungrounded and spikes in my back make me feel grounded while I'm meditating. And then there's times where I don't touch that thing for months, and it's okay. I don't shame myself for it because I allow myself to say, all right, you don't have infinite time in your day. So you're going to use whatever tool is best for you in these moments. And that's okay. That's fine. Because all you're doing is staying in that connected vibration. And so I hope that this helped. I want you to remember that spirituality isn't about escaping our human moments. It isn't about fixing our mental health because they're not separate. They're all together. It's all together because our mental health, again, as I said before, is usually tied to our lack of connectivity with ourselves, with our spiritual selves inside of us, our hearts and our souls. That's where a lot of our mental health struggles come from, that we are living our matrix life and our matrix life is not built for humanness. So that discrepancy is creating a crisis, but that crisis isn't organic and it isn't forever, and then things can shift. And this is one of the ways to start doing that, right? Like, is this just this belief and this connectivity to a spiritual being or your spiritual self? It's about giving your human moments purpose and transmuting them into the change that fulfills us and evolves us, changes our lives into things that make us feel better. We're going to have many, many human moments in our lifetime. If we can learn how to dip into this concept of something bigger, internally and externally working together, it can give us the pause we need to get out of our acute pain and into the divine practice of learning through our pain. So that's it. I don't know if that's an abrupt ending or not. Felt good when I was writing it, saying it out loud. I'm like, it's not the greatest wrap up, but it is what happened. So I just want to thank you for joining me today on the Psych Gym. If this feels like it was an episode that was helpful, make sure you share it with somebody who might need it. Sometimes we underestimate the power of sharing things that have touched us or that we believe might help somebody else who's in a struggle. So if that's the case, absolutely. You can reach me on my socials. And if you have something that you'd like me to talk about, 100%, please throw that my way. I can come up with topics for days, but I want to make sure I come up with topics that are helpful for y'all. So until next time, make sure you take care of yourselves. And thank you for letting me be your guide today. Love y'all. Thanks for listening. To learn more about what I do and how to work with me, head to thepsychgym.com to check it out. Keep lifting, y'all. It's worth it.